Hello everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me with our Italian colleagues for this ninth seminar on the French-Italian cooperation in heritage science. I am also delighted to see here my dear colleague Michel Menu. We are sharing not only the same haircut, but we have both worked with Vincent Detalle, and I would like to honor Vincent's memory. He was such a passionate and an inquisitive scientist, always ready to explore new paths, to develop tools dedicated to the characterization of cultural heritage objects, inventive, persistent, and resolutely focused on innovation. He was able to imagine and design instrumentation solutions that prove truly useful in the field. This is terrible. Within a few months, we lost two incredible heritage scientists in the prime of life, Vincent Detalle and Austin Nevin. May their enthusiasm, creativity, and passion continue to be a source of inspiration for our community. Now, as requested, my presentation today will focus on photograph preservation. Through a few examples, I want to show how, starting from international preservation standards, we have been able, and we are still able, to integrate environmental priorities, and how European research projects have helped us to introduce new tools for preservation. And let me start by setting the context for photographic heritage preservation. During the first half of the 20th century, photographs were seen as consumer goods, easily reproducible, image on paper that could be replaced or reprinted. It was only in the 1970s that photographs began to be seen as a part of our cultural heritage and started to be preserved and exhibited in museums. And actually that corresponds to the time when I started to carry out researches on photograph preservation at the French Ministry of Culture in 1983. And now, 40 years later, we are approaching the 200th anniversary of the birth of photography. In 1826, Nicéphore Niepce took this photograph from his window. It is considered the first, or at least the oldest surviving photograph, and it is now part of the collection at the Harry Ransom Center in Austin, Texas. It took many hours, probably more than 8 hours, even 16 hours to take these pictures. 16 hours, that is to say 60,000 seconds to make one photo. And today the world produces 60,000 images in 1 second thanks to the digital technology. And for sure, not all those trillions of photographs have to be preserved. However, many have a high historical and artistical significance and are part of our heritage. I will not discuss today digital photography or AI-generated images, which are a new branch of the visual arts and require different preservation strategy. Instead, I will focus on the preservation of the 19th and 20th centuries photographic heritage. What are the requirements and challenges for preserving those photographs, and how can preservation practices be more sustainable? Photographs were born with an inherent weakness, their lack of stability. It was recognized by the photographers of the time, and it stimulated research and innovation into more permanent photographic processes. Black and white photographs fade over time, and modern photographic processes have introduced new issues, such as the color fading and the degradation of the plastic film. Such degradation can occur within a few decades. It became necessary to establish specific recommendations for their preservation, which were very different from those for painting or graphic documents. However, what really paved the way and triggered the development of standards for photographic preservation at the end of the 20th century was the preservation of microfilms. By the 1950s and the 1970s, microfilms were used to protect valuable information, scientific data, strategic archives, and rare books. The first standard for microfilm was produced in the 1970s, and standards for the preservation of photographs soon began to emerge from the 1980s. Thus, photographic heritage became one of the first cultural assets to benefit from international standardization for its preservation. These preservation standards recommend lowering temperature and humidity to slow the degradation of photographs. Many heritage institutions around the world have implemented cool or cold storage vaults for their photographic collections, which have a significant carbon footprint. Now, how can we reconcile photographic preservation with sustainability? To adapt preservation practices need to integrate passive climate regulation, the use of renewable energy, and risk prevention strategies, and also address what level of degradation is acceptable and over what time frame. In practice, this begins with two actions: analyzing the collections and establishing a risk matrix to set priorities. Let's take some examples. If you look at the preservation standards, you'll see that storage conditions and humidity levels are carefully defined according to the type of photograph. For archiving black and white prints or gelatin glass plate negatives, the recommended temperature is 16 or 18 degrees Celsius. Yet, many black and white prints or glass plate collections have survived over 100 years at room temperature without significant damage. In fact, the main threat is not temperature, but humidity. High humidity promotes silver mirroring and mold growth. Therefore, it can be acceptable to store these artifacts at room temperature while the relative humidity remains below 60%. And the best way to achieve this is to create microenvironment. In Asia, we have implemented the use of dry cabinets for storing a collection of glass plate negatives. These cabinets are commonly sold for protecting cameras or electronic equipment in humid climates. They are low cost and energy efficient. Each cabinet contains a small air dehumidifying system that dries the air, pauses when the target humidity is reached, and only resumes when necessary. After a few years of operation, even when the room humidity was around 80%, the relative humidity inside the cabinets remained at about 40%. The brief peaks you see here correspond to times when the doors were opened. This cabinet could be an interesting option to maintain low humidity while using minimal energy. Nevertheless, at room temperature, some materials, such as color photograph or plastic film base, may deteriorate within 30 years. And they require not only humidity control, but also storage at lower temperatures. International standards recommend a storage temperature below 5 degrees Celsius or even below 0 degrees Celsius, depending on the volume of the collection. Instead of cold rooms that needs an expensive humidity control system, we use freezers or refrigerators with airtight packaging. The city of Paris is now testing the use of wine cabinets to keep nitrate-based negatives at temperatures between 4 degrees Celsius and 8 degrees Celsius. While not as effective as freezers, these cabinets can still significantly extend the lifespan of collections compared to storing them at room temperature. In fact, lowering the temperature by 10 degrees Celsius is known to roughly triple an object's life expectancy. Nevertheless, the creation of a microenvironment may raise a crucial issue regarding air quality, whether in an enclosure, a showcase, a cabinet without proper air renewal. Depending on the material stored, pollutants, including VOCs, may accumulate and put the collections at risk. A similar issue applies to storage vault, where the air exchange is reduced to save energy. To maintain proper air quality in poorly ventilated spaces, adsorbent can be used. Activated carbon is the most common, but it has a few drawbacks. We are testing with colleagues a new kind of adsorbent developed over the past 20 years, the metal organic frameworks, or MOFs. Recently, a group of scientists received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for pioneering work in this era. MOFs are promising adsorbent. They are crystalline porous materials formed by linking metal ions to organic molecules. They are highly specific and can be synthesized to capture target molecules. There are numerous possibilities, and in our work, we tested the MOF named 1100 that have been proved to be very efficient to trap organic acids like acetic and formic acid released over time by the decomposition of photographic plastic base or low-quality paper. We tested it in movie film containers as part of a European-funded project called Nemozyne. The MOF efficiently captures acid, cleans the air, and thus slows down film degradation. Storing 2 kilo cellulose acetate movie film at 22 degrees Celsius with 100 grams of 1100 provides the same level of preservation as storing the film at 5 degrees Celsius for 10 years without MOF. Using such adsorbent may allow these films to be safely stored at room temperature instead of in cold storage, significantly reducing the carbon footprint. Other MOF for capturing formaldehyde, nitrogen oxide, or hydrogen sulfide are being investigated in our ongoing European-funded SIMIACI project. This project aims to improve air quality in libraries, museums, and archives, from the storage boxes to the storage rooms. But one challenge is that MOFs are usually available as powder, beads, or granules, which are not very practical for use in cultural institutions, museums. Powder, in particular, can produce dust that may dirty or damage the collections. One of our major innovations is the development of a paper sheet containing over 75% MOF. These MOF paper sheets are easy to store, handle, cut, and place in enclosures. We are currently testing them under real conditions, including display cases cabinets and a storage room. Once used, they can be regenerated by soaking in cold water overnight. An exciting prospect is that our MOF paper can also function as a humidity buffer or for dehumidification, similar to silica gel. The MOF paper sheet can absorb half of its weight in water within 40 minutes and can be regenerated at 50 degrees Celsius. By comparison, silica gel, zeolite or other desiccants require much higher temperature, over 100 degrees Celsius, to be regenerated. In an air conditioning system, using MOFs could therefore offer significant energy saving compared to the desiccant wheels commonly used in industrial installations. These properties make also MOFs suitable for passive indoor humidity control in showcases or boxes for humidity buffering or other passive applications. Thus, through these examples, my aim was not so much to go into the detail of our research. The QR codes provide links to the specific publication. Instead, I wanted to highlight what conservation science can contribute to eco-responsible preservation practices that can be applied to collections with very limited technical means or energy resources and ensure optimal conservation conditions. I will conclude by emphasizing that sustainability priorities do not conflict with preservation. Rather, they push out of our comfort zone and drive innovation. Innovation, creativity, informed decision-making, and critical thinking, just as in art conservation, are essential for addressing the challenges of climate change. Like our Italian colleagues, we are seeking solutions, but it is a slow process. Heritage preservation remains a niche market, and industry players are often reluctant to invest. Transitioning from laboratory research to real-world application usually takes time, and even more so in the field of cultural heritage. Just before ending my presentation, I would like to announce the upcoming International Conference on Photograph Preservation. We will be hosting in Paris from 9 to 11 November 2026. We warmly invite you to join us for this event and look forward to welcoming you. Thank you for your attention.